Okay, friends, we're starting another amazing book today called The Rays and the Initiations by Alice Bailey. Well, arguably one of the most important books to come to us in more recent times. And uh, we will just work our way through it today, starting out with the preliminary remarks. And then we'll take our time. It's going to be totally worth it. This is a must absorb book, and it is truly food for the soul. Enjoy. It might here be of value, my brothers, if I again laid emphasis upon the fact that the formless world is only entered when the aspirant has acquired somewhat the capacity to center himself on the abstract levels of the mental plane. This involves necessarily certain developments within the aspirant's own nature. The demanded contact would otherwise be impossible. What is needed is self exertion, the resultant developments of which might be touched upon as follows. 1. The repolarization of the entire lower man, so that his attitude towards the aggregate of forms which make up his field of general contact is changed. He is no longer deluded by the things of the senses, but has in his hand that thread or clue which will eventually guide him out of the maze of the lower life perceptions into the field of clear knowledge and the realm where daylight is found. He will then no longer need to walk in the dark. This repolarization is brought about in 4 ways, each of which provides the next step forward, and in their totality, and when definitely followed, will eventuate in the total subjugation of the personality. These 4 ways are a constant and unfailing attempt to center the consciousness within the head. From the central position, the real man, the directing agency, will direct and guide all his members, imposing upon the lunar lords of the physical body a new rhythm and habit of response. 2 factors are of value and helpful in the production of the necessary polarization: the reiterated appreciation of the words, I am the self am I. The habit of early morning meditation, wherein the thinker centers himself in the point of control and starts upon his day's experience and contacts with the realization that he is only the observer, the perceiver, and actor. He is, oh, let's say it like this also. He is only the observer, the perceiver, and actor. A close consideration throughout the day as to the use and misuse of energy. Every man should realize that in the use of energy lies direction and the treading of the path. It produces eventually truthful manifestation and the displaying of one's light in order that circumstances may be irradiated and fellow pilgrims helped. Students should familiarize themselves with the energy concept and learn to regard themselves as energy units displaying certain types of energy. In this connection, it should be borne in mind that when spiritual energy and material energy, the 2 opposite poles, are brought into relationship, a 3rd type of energy is produced, and the work of the 4th or human kingdom is to demonstrate this particular type. It might serve to clarify thought if students remembered that superhuman entities display spiritual energy. Subhuman entities display the energy of matter, and human entities display soul energy. In the perfect manifestation of these 3 will the plan of creation be consummated. It should also be borne in mind that these 3 are nevertheless a manifestation of duality, spirit and matter, and that this is the manifestation of a great existence and of his appearing. Therefore, what are called the three gunas in Hindu philosophy are but the qualities he manifests through these types of entities. Superhuman lives express sattva, the guna of rhythm and of harmonious response to divine urge, of perfect display of coordinated cooperation with the purpose of manifestation. Human lives demonstrate the quality of rajas, of mobility, of constant and conscious change in order to ascertain what is the real, and through the medium of experience demonstrate the true nature of rhythmic response. Subhuman lives express the guna of tamas or of inertia. They work blindly and have no ability to respond consciously to the planned. They are the sum total of the units of inertia, just as the human units are called the points of light moving within the square. That may have its appeal to Masons. This subject of the use or misuse of energy is capable of infinite expansion. And in my other books, where I give you more upon the centers, I have enlarged upon it. I but seek at this time to give you that which can be of immediate use to students and thus lay the foundation for later work. A close study of the needed transmutation of astral and emotional energy into love, the energy of love. This involves the sublimation of personal feeling into group realization or consciousness, and when carried out successfully, produces in time the construction of a higher and subtler body, the Buddhic sheath. When this sheath is thus materialized, a very high stage of advancement is marked, but the earlier stages can be intelligently approached by any earnest student and probationer. To transmute emotion into love, the following realization will be found necessary. 1. A realization that all moods, all display of sorrow, of pain, or of happy excitement are due to our identification with the objects of desire, with the form aspect, and with that which is material. And 2, an understanding of the emotional or astral body and of the place in which it plays in the student's development. It should be recognized as the shadow of the monad, and a connection should be traced between the astral sheath on the 6th plane, the Buddhic sheath on the 4th plane, and the monadic sheath on the 2nd plane. And the place the love petals and the egoic lotus play should also be carefully considered. 3, a comprehension of the potency of the astral sheath owing to its undivided nature. And 4, a study of the purpose of the solar plexus and the part it plays as an organ of transference of energy from the 3 great centers below the diaphragm to the 3 higher centers. There is a very close analogy here to the solar lotus, the egoic body, occupying a midway point between the threefold monad and the threefold lower man. The more advanced should follow this. The development of the faculty of mind control so that the thinker grips and holds steady the mental processes and learns to regard the mind as the interpreter of the states of consciousness, as transmitter of egoic intent to the physical brain, as the window through which the ego, the real man, looks out upon vast and unknown fields of knowledge, and those being unknown to the majority. All right, number 2 here, the emergence into manifestation of the subjective aspect in man. All right, number 1 was the repolarization of the entire man so that his attitude toward the aggregate of forms which make up his field of general contact has changed. And that's what we just went through there. And we're moving on to number 2, which is an emergence into manifestation of the subjective aspect in man. One of the objects of evolution is that the subjective reality should eventually be brought forward into recognition. This can be expressed in several symbolic ways, all of them dealing with the same one fact in nature: the bringing to the birth of the Christ within, the shining forth of the inner radiance of glory, the demonstration of the second or love aspect, the manifestation of the solar angel, the appearing of the Son of God, the ego or soul within, and the full expression of buddhi as it utilizes manas or mind. This emergence into manifestation is brought about through what is understood by the following terms: the refining of the bodies which form the casket or sheath hiding the reality, the process of unveiling so that one by one those bodies which veil the self are brought to a point where they are simply transparencies, permitting the full shining forth of the divine nature, an expansion of consciousness which is brought about through the ability of the self to identify with its real nature as the onlooker and no longer regarding itself as the organ of perception. On to number 3 here, a realignment of the lower sheaths so that the contact with the real man, the thinker, the solar angel, on the higher levels of the mental plane may become complete and continuous. This only becomes possible as the other 2 points are beginning to be grasped and the theory as to man's constitution and purpose is somewhat understood. As meditation is practiced, as the lower bodies are painstakingly dominated, and as the nature of the sutratma or thread is better comprehended, it will become increasingly possible to bring into the lower personality on the physical plane that spiritual illumination and that divine energy which is the soul's heritage. Little by little, the light will shine forth. Year by year, the strength of the higher contact will grow. Gradually, the downpour of divine love and wisdom into the head centers will be increased until eventually the entire lower man will be transformed, his sheets will be refined, controlled, and used, and he will demonstrate upon the earth the powers of director, teacher, or manipulator according to the major ray upon which his monad may be found. That is a very deep statement there. This director, teacher, or manipulator, that should be associated with the first three rays being the ray of will or power, love, wisdom, and active intelligence. 4, a series of tests leading to initiation. When a man is beginning to demonstrate the qualities of his ray and to prove of gradually increasing importance to his group, he will be prepared through tests, through trials, and through temptations for those final stages in development which will put into his power the knowledge of certain laws governing form and matter, the keys of the mysteries connected with energy, with polarity, and with group relation, certain words of power which will give him control over the elemental forces of nature and insight into the planetary plans. Upon these I need not enlarge, nor need I take up with you here the subject of initiation. The first work to be done is the stimulating of aspirants and the preparing of the few earnest ones to tread the path of discipleship. The final point of our theme concerns, the fifth point here, the basic essential of pure character. This is something more than just being good. It deals with the matter aspect and has relation to the hold or control that the form has over the man. We might express it this way and therefore give its more occult connotation. If one or other of the three lower elementals, the physical, astral, and the mental, are the controlling factors in the life of the man, he is, by that very fact, put into a position of danger and should take steps to arrest that control prior to an attempt to enter into the formless realm. The reason for this will be apparent. Under the governing law of matter, the law of economy, the elemental life will attract to itself similar lives, and this will result in a dual danger. These dangers are one, the gathering into the form through the dominant note sounded by the form elemental of matter with synchronous vibration. This will tend to increase the magnitude of the task before the ego and sweep into increasing dominance the lower man. The lunar lords will become increasingly powerful and the solar lord correspondingly less august. 2. The man will find himself surrounded in time with thought forms of a lower order from the standpoint of the soul, and before he can penetrate into the arcana of wisdom and find his way into the master's world, he will have to dispel the clouds of thought forms which he has attracted to himself. Unless the disciple learns that aspiration and self-discipline must proceed side by side, he will find that the spiritual energy he may appreciate and contact will only serve to stimulate the latent seeds of evil in his nature and thereby demonstrate the exactitude of the truth that the great Lord taught when he pictured the man who swept his house, cast out 7 devils, and eventually was in worse condition than ever. It is essential that aspirants should understand the nature of the lower man and should grasp the fact that every coherent system has its varying types of energy, and that perfection is achieved when the highest type of energy inherently possible dominates. If the lower energy of the aggregate of the form atoms is the controlling factor, 3 things will take place. 1. The form itself will grow by accretion and will become ever more potent until the dominant voice of its lunar lords will stifle all other voices and the man be swept back into inertia, blindness, and bondage. 2. Many people are not only under the control of some one or other of their forms, but are the captives of all 3. In studying the lower threefold man and the energies or lives that seek to control him, it should be remembered that they fall into 3 categories. A, the individual tiny lives, which we call atoms or cells of the body. These exist in 3 groups and compose These exist in 3 groups and compose respectively the 4 types of bodies: dense physical, etheric, astral, and mental. The aggregate of these lives, which constitute in themselves 4 types of elementals or separate, coherent, though not self-conscious existences. These 4 lunar lords constitute what the Ageless Wisdom teaching calls the 4 sides of the square. They are the lower quaternary, the imprisoning cubes, or the cross upon which the inner spiritual man is to be crucified. These 4 elementals have an intelligence all their own, are upon the involutionary arc, are following the law of their own being when they tend to become powerful and thereby fully express that which is in them. C. A dominant controlling lunar lord, who is that which we understand by the term the lower personality. He, if the personal pronoun can be used, is the sum total of the physical, astral, and mental elementals, and it is this power which at present forces the fiery energies of the body to feed the lower three centers. The etheric body has a unique and curious position, being simply the vehicle for prana, or life, and the center which it uses exists in a category by itself. 3. All subhuman forms in their aggregate prove a powerful deterrent factor in the progress towards emancipation of the real man. They form the opposite to what we understand by the world of the master, and the two are in direct opposition to each other from the standpoint of the aspirant. The adept can enter the world of form, can contact it, work in it, and remain unaffected by it because there is nothing in him to respond to it. He sees through the illusion to the reality behind, and, knowing where he stands himself, there is naught in the appeal and the demand of these lunar lords to attract him. He stands midway between the pairs of opposites. In the realization of the nature of this world of form, in a comprehension of the lives which compose it, and an ability to hear the voice of the formless one above the strife of all the lower voices, comes the opportunity for the aspirant to escape from the dominance of matter. This is the true magical work, my brothers, the understanding of the sounds of all beings and the ability to speak the language of the soul is the clue to the work. These faculties rightly used impose upon these lesser lives that control which will lead to the final liberation, and which will in due time lead these lives themselves into the realm of self-consciousness. This aspect of the matter is as yet but little comprehended by the sons of men. If they but realized that by a disposition to fall under lunar control, they drive the tiny lives in their little system deeper into the darkness of ignorance, they might more rapidly assume their just responsibilities if they realized that by the constant attempt to impose the rhythm of the solar lord upon the aggregate of the lunar lords, they were driving these lives onward to self-conscious unfoldment. They might proceed more earnestly and more intelligently. This is the message that must go forth, for all the varying aspects of the life of God are interdependent, and not one proceeds onward into fuller realization without benefiting the entire group. A few simple suggestions I will give. These can be useful to all sincere aspirants. In the ordered regulation of the life comes eventual synthesis and the right control of time with all that eventuates therefrom. In the right elimination of that which is secondary, and in a sense of rightly adjusted proportion, comes that accuracy and one-pointedness which is the hallmark of the occultist. In the right aspiration at the appointed time comes the necessary contact and the inspiration for the work that has to be done. In the steady adherence to self-appointed rules comes the gradual refining of the instrument and the perfecting of the vehicles that will be to the master the medium of help among many little ones. I commend the above thought to you, knowing that you will apprehend the implications and will seriously consider the purport of my remarks. The world today is in the throes of agony, just as in the evolving ego, the moment of greatest development is oft the moment of greatest pain, if apprehension measures up to opportunity, so in the evolving world. To those of you who have the inner sight and intuitive comprehension comes the opportunity to aid that apprehension and to lead a despairing world deep cast into darkness and distress one step nearer to the light. The work you have to do is to take the knowledge which is yours and adjust its application to the world's need so that recognition of the truth may be rapid. In the heart of every man lies hid the flower of intuition. On that you can depend, and no eternal or cosmic fact, clothed in a suitable form, will fail to receive its meed of recognition and understanding. Okay. We're going to leave it there for today. It was a good start. Lots of deep stuff in there, very much worthy of its own study. So that's plenty to ponder on. We'll get at it again quickly. Have a good one. See ya.